Hey everybody, it's Party Elite. Welcome back to IXION Let's Play, where things are getting a little tight. This encroaching storm is making me increasingly nervous, folks, and to be perfectly honest, I don't think we'll have enough time to accomplish everything there is to accomplish up over here before the storm engulfs this entire area and forces us to travel down south, let's call it, to these wreckage sites for hopeful permanent safety. I don't know how this storm moves. I don't know if it's going to swing back around and come back towards us when we're down over here, or if it's going to keep pushing further and further away and leave us alone. But for the time being, we have very little time to actually take care of everything that needs taken care of. The industrial zone wreckage over here is currently being investigated, and we have the Galileo heading towards the reactor wreckage as well to pick up those science points and investigate exactly what went down over here. But as those two wreckage sites get fully investigated, I feel like the storm is going to push through and we won't have enough time to investigate the collapsed food production district before we have to leave. That might be the case, and you know what? That's perfectly fine. Food is doing excellently on the station, and I don't need to go scavenging for food, so that's okay. There are some science points we'll be leaving behind when we leave, but look, that's fine. It's not the end of the world. Separately, though, what would be the end of the world is if we allow our mining and cargo ships to keep chasing after these resources that are very clearly situated in extremely dangerous spaces. So let's go ahead and make sure that these guys are all avoided, because again, just as a reminder, when it comes to resource acquisition, all we can really do is tell ships what to get and with what priority. Where to get it is determined by them based on these little directives we can give them as far as prioritization and avoidance. Now, to that end though, if you take a quick look around the system map, you'll see that while there are places for us to still mine ice, unfortunately there is nowhere for us to gather ice from outside of the storm. So in order to take care of that situation, I want to prioritize ice mining for the cataphract over here, and we can reduce the priority of silicon mining, and iron and carbon are fine where they are, but this should hopefully force the cataphract to mine out some of the ice over here, or perhaps up over here, which will then allow our cargo ship, Santa's sleigh, to go chasing after it, because right now it's not really doing anything because it's not allowed to go over here, right? So we want to make sure everybody is operating as optimally as possible, because our time here is limited and we have to make sure we scoop everything up before we have to leave. Now, on the topic of leaving, if we take a look at our potential destination, which I assume to be the depressurized R&D district, because it looks like this little sort of scooped out section of the storm over here will fit snugly around the depressurized R&D district as the storm continues to move northward. I'm going to go ahead and say yes, it looks like this R&D district is where we're going to end up, and it'll actually take us 5.4 cycles to get here. There is no spot in between here and there that we can stop at. Again, the station can only go from waypoint to waypoint, and unless we want to go to the reactor wreckage and suffer that -1 to stability for no good reason, it's going to be a straight shot for 5.4 cycles. Now, we do not have enough batteries for 5.4 cycles, not in Sector 1, not in Sector 2, and not in Sector 3. But, truth be told, I'm not too worried about Sector 1. Sure, if we have a blackout for a couple of cycles, we're going to see the cessation of food production, and that's obviously somewhat concerning, but we have such a stockpile of food, I think we'll be okay. Separately, Sector 2 kind of feels similarly. Yeah, I'm a little nervous about the halting of all industrial production, but we have so many alloys, I'm sure we'll be just fine, at least as far as the essentials are concerned. Construction, hull repair, that kind of stuff. And on that note is why Sector 3 is actually a concern. Sector 3 cannot spend any time without power. It's because Sector 3 is where we have all of our EVA airlocks. For the time being, we just have the 2, and they're keeping us afloat. But if you take a look at this tooltip over here, you'll see that with those 2 EVA airlocks shut down, which is what would happen if we ran out of juice in Sector 3, we just have a huge negative. That hull depletion rate would destroy the Tiqqun in no time. And don't forget, that -84 is when we're standing still. When we start to move, that negative actually escalates. It becomes even worse. So there's no chance we'd make it out alive if those EVA airlocks stop working. So we have to make sure Sector 3 is always operational throughout that journey. So to that end, we're going to go ahead and build some additional batteries. We're going to pop one down over here. We're going to extend the road over here temporarily to get this one built, and then we're going to go ahead and destroy the road and get our 6th battery built up over here, and then we'll add some more if need be. We'll see what our, overall potential looks like after these 2 batteries have been built up, and we'll make some adjustments accordingly if necessary. Separate from that, I do also want to build an additional EVA airlock over here, butted up right against the probe launcher over here, and this is to make up for the fact that we removed the EVA airlock in Sector 2, and to make up for the fact that when we're moving again, that balance per cycle will drop into the negative. So this bad boy is only going to be active when we're moving, or if we have other things to concern ourselves with, which is keeping our balance per cycle in the negative. Otherwise, by and large, this is mostly going to stay off, just to make sure we're not wasting power, to make sure we're not, seeing bad working conditions, etc., and we're not wasting alloys either with a balance per cycle that's well beyond what we actually need to maintain a decently healthy structure. But this is not all we're going to do in Sector 3. Sector 3 is also going to see the construction of our much-awaited health center. And you might be wondering, hang on a second, we planned to do that in Sector 1. What happened to that plan? Well, what happened to that plan is Party Elite realized that he was not seeing his grids properly. This health center is a little bit bigger than I'd previously thought. And if we actually place it where we were previously planning to place it, you'll see we have to get rid of these demotic quarters as well, because, the health center is a bigger building than I'd previously anticipated. Now, there are a couple of other places where I could put the health center down, but I don't think that's necessarily the right call, because we're kind of like forcing it into a space where it really doesn't feel like it belongs. So why don't we go ahead and place it down over here in Sector 3, where there's plenty of room, not just for 1, but actually for 2, if we did want to have Sector 3 be our space and, I guess, healthcare sector. Now, just to be clear, the health center isn't actually a specialized building. It doesn't contribute to a specialization, nor does it benefit from one. But it does heal up to 100 injured crew members, and again, with the train station, it'll be able to apply that benefit across all sectors that have the train station. So let's go ahead and commission the construction over here. It'll take a fair bit of time to actually get it done, because we don't have 9 electronics, and it'll take a fair bit of time for our waste treatment center to produce even the 1, let alone how long it'll take our electronics factory to produce any, because we have no silicon to work with. Anyway, look, it's going to take some time to build this health center up, but it'll happen eventually. We're not pressed. We're not in a rush. It's just fine. Yes, the option is always there to cancel the construction of this solar panel, and that might be the wiser call, but truth be told, I think we're fine. We've already invested so much into the solar panels, so much like shipping time, so much resources have been set aside for it. Let's leave that be as is, and we'll take it all in due time as we acquire more electronics, as we either build them or hopefully pick them up from some of those wreckage sites that we're investigating right now. But with all that said and done, folks, I think we're good to actually let time start moving forward once more, because despite the tension of this brewing storm and this encroaching storm, everything's kind of nicely in place. We got plenty of food happening. We've got a decent supply of resources still available to us. We have a lot to look forward to as well when we actually get down over here, right? Plenty of science to pick up. Like, things are okay. That could turn around extremely quickly, but that's exactly why we've made plans, and that's exactly why we're doing things like building the 3rd EVA airlock or establishing our batteries over here. So I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be okay. Famous last words, I know. And just as a reminder, by the way, folks, at the Tech Lab, we are currently researching the advanced logistics upgrade for our mess hall, and as soon as that's done, we're going to move through all of the other upgrades, hoping to reach Space Chef as quickly as possible in order to feed more people more readily, because again, as you can see up over here, we know that there are at least 1,900 more cryonic pods headed our way, and that's that at our current rate of food production and stuff, that is an unsustainable population. Sure, we might unlock a 4th sector that we dedicate to food, but if we can get more done with what we already have, I'll feel just that much better. And by the way, I actually just noticed we're about halfway done to our ice objective over here, which is nice to see. But back to the system map, as we've accomplished a few tasks over here. The reactor wreckage has had all of its science points scooped up, so let's take a look and see what's actually happening at this wreckage site. Data summary on Etamananki reactors. Our sensors have located a section of the Etamananki drifting in space. First reports indicate that this wreckage was once the ship's engine room and reactors. Transmission from the crew of the Galileo. We have arrived at the site. Only 2 of the Etamananki's massive reactors remain. Initial reconnaissance revealed 3 places of interest: the thrusters, the engine room, and the engine supervision area. Alright, every time the game gives me choices, I feel like I'm going to make the wrong call, you know? It's just always like that. Things can't be too simple, can they? The Galileo's team will analyze and investigate the Etmananki's thrusters in order to learn more about the mobility of this immense ship. Okay, could be helpful. Inspecting the engine room will allow us to learn more about how the Etmananki operated. Investigating the engine supervision area will allow us to learn more about the superstructure's final moments. Let's go ahead and prioritize those final moments, because maybe that'll give us some insight into how we can avoid our own final moments. So let's start with that. It'll be about 3 cycles, and at the same time, let's go ahead and take a look at what's happening at the industrial zone wreckage site instead. It'll be about half a cycle before we're ready to do that, but that's not too far away now. As down over here, you can see the mining ships are picking up some ice. We're going to see our cargo ships moving down right away as well, so that's feeling pretty good. We got iron, we got silicon, we got no carbon, it looks like, but a little bit of everything else. And truth be told, polymers aren't the most urgently needed resource, so we're okay. I think we're okay. As up over here, the industrial zone wreckage site is ready to be explored further, I think, in just a moment's time. Jump the gun there. There we go. What do we have here? The storage area seems to have been the battleground for a large, violent clash. Workers attempted to repel an invader using small firearms and improvised weaponry. Apart from the cutting laser marks across bodies and containers, there is no evidence that identifies the invader. The large majority of the storage area seems to have been emptied, but after some searching, the Calypso's team located a number of intact cryopods and resource containers. Everything has been prepared for extraction. God damn. I was not ready to pick up cryonic pods up over here. I was really hoping that they would largely be after we're done dealing with the storm. I don't know if I can leave these guys behind. I might have to. I hope I can't. I hope it's not possible to soft lock myself. I don't know if we can lose these resources or what happens when the storm actually covers this space. Does it stay here? Does it keep moving? I'm not sure. So we'll be taking some risks at least, though I am glad to see that electronics are available over here. Alloys, again, not so urgently needed, but electronics, yeah, I think we'll want to rush those for sure. Separately, we can go ahead and either explore the industrial zone or look for the source of the yellow particles. Why don't we go ahead and explore the industrial zone and see if there are other additional resources we can pick up here as well. It'll take just 2 cycles to do that, and then we can assign some of our ships to pick those resources up while we're investigating the source of these yellow particles. Let's get Santa's sleigh bringing electronics back as a high priority as well. It won't take very long for that to be done, and then he'll flip back to bringing back ice. Let's actually make ice a second priority. Sure, why not? Let's get those electronics in so we can hopefully build up our health centers and all that good stuff. Silicon mining is happening. There's a bit of silicon out there to pick up. Is there more silicon to be mined? Is there really only so much? I guess so. Up over here we have just 18, and everything else is, yeah, beyond the storm. That's really quite unfortunate. Especially this one, 300 silicon just sitting there waiting to be scooped up, and we can't do anything about it. It is what it is as we enter halfway points between cycle 900 and 901. It's kind of wild. 900 cycles we've been out and about trying to make this work, and you know what? Hey, so far it's been working all right. It's been pretty all right. It's been pretty all right. I'm pretty pleased with my work as an administrator. Trust has pretty much always stayed at 100% or thereabouts. You know, people have been healthy. They've been well fed. We've only lost 17 people, some of them to the storm itself, which how can someone be so, prepared for something like that, right? I think our losses have all been fair and reasonable. I think we've done pretty well for ourselves, all things considered. Now, what else do we have to prioritize as we prepare to receive close to another 2,000 cryonic pods? I mean, I feel like everything's okay for the time being. It's a really kind of a strange situation I find myself in, where it's quite literally the calm before the storm. I'm sure things are going to pick up and become just that much more nerve-wracking in a handful of moments when we finish investigating some of these sites and the storm comes through, but for the time being, things are feeling pretty good. By the way, as science over here goes higher and higher. I just wanted to point out what many of you pointed out to me in the comments of the previous episode. Yes, the reason why our population dropped below 2,000 is because we, of course, sent a bunch of them over to P42 to colonize it. Of course, completely slipped my mind, but you're absolutely right. That's why our population dropped. So no, people didn't magically disappear. We actually sent them away, and hopefully their work will be completed before we get hit by the storm, and we'll be able to not just collect them before we leave, but also collect all the science in this area before we leave too. But let's go ahead and take a look at the industrial zone wreckage and the reactor wreckage to see what else we're able to find out before we leave. But the industrial zone wreckage, we're seeing what? The industrial zone itself is devastated. Both factory machinery and crew were covered by flying molten metal as depressurization occurred. Jeez. As the metal solidified, grisly monuments were created. Sometimes all that remains of a body is a cracked metal shell. Cryopods found in this area have either been covered by steel or compromised. Our team was able to gather some information about the Etamananki's production methods. Good stuff. 20 science ready for extraction. Why don't we go ahead and extract that before we look for the source of the yellow particles? And separately, let's take a look at the reactor wreckage as well to find what? Ooh, hello. That's a little concerning. New event, pirate. A little daunting. Summary of intelligence on the Etamananki's engine supervision district. The engine supervision area was mainly occupied by those of rank. Some had time to enter cryopods before the apparent depressurization of the area. Analysis of remaining computer infrastructure indicates that their directives were merciless towards the engine room workers. Goddamn, they treated them as expendable outcasts. Wow. 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 I guess I shouldn't be surprised. There are traces throughout the entire supervisory district of hacking attempts. All ship computers dedicated to the engines and reactors were compromised, preventing the Etamananki from maneuvering and causing power failures throughout the superstructure. The Galileo's team has managed to extract remnants of the computer protocols that were used to do this. These fragments of code point to an author, the BMS. Relevant data has been sent to the Tiqqun's tech lab for more detailed analysis. Ah, is that a new area of study for our tech lab, perhaps? So I guess they were hacked. It was cyber warfare by the BMS that kind of put them into this panic situation, and from there it's all dominoes, I suppose. 50 science ready for extraction, and about 170 cryopods as well. End data listening protocol, and let's go ahead and collect that science before we do any further investigating. Again, the faster we can move through the tech tree right now, the faster we can benefit from all of these upgrades to the mess hall, right? So stellar cuisine and then space chef, where everything, all the other prerequisites are done, so it's just 1, 2, and we're through. And then it's a matter of what do we focus on next? It's kind of up in the air. I mean, I suppose I could chase after the algae farm, and supposedly this produces a lot more food for a moderate amount of water being used up, and that's probably not a terrible idea. Or again, we can chase after upgrades to the mushroom wall to accelerate the rate at which it produces food. Decisions, and I'm not sure which ones are the right ones. I also wonder if we shouldn't prioritize upgrading our batteries to get them up to tier 3, because if I recall correctly, we need to build enough batteries so that at least 4 sectors will have backup power for 5 cycles. So as much as I don't mind sectors 1 and 2 running out of juice while we travel, at the end of the day, we need to have 5 cycles worth of battery power to prepare for the Piranesi. Either way, let's go ahead and take a look at this Tech Lab event over here as we're ready to make a decision for the reactor wreckage as well. But first, this event over here. Administrator, we now have data to analyze Piranesi hacking protocols. The associated research project can be launched in the Tech Lab. This should allow us to set up computer protection systems to reduce the impact of any digital attacks. Acknowledged. So there you have it, that last question mark on the tech tree. Hacking threat analysis upgrade unlocked for the Piranesi. Oh, wait, no. Hang on a second, that's different. If we take a look really quickly, that falls under the Piranesi. There's still something out there that we have to learn about. Well, that's interesting. All right, that's exciting. It'll take 40 science to get hacking threat analysis done. So maybe once we're done with our mess hall upgrades, we'll chase after this first, just to make sure if there's an event in this system, we're ready for it, right? Because the Piranesi was clearly already here. So what's to say it won't come back, right? Maybe it's still lurking in the shadows. I'm not sure. And it seems as though the electronics we recovered from the wreckage site were immediately deposited for the production of the solar panels, which are still just a little far away from being built. We need one more electronics and 5 more alloys, but that shouldn't be too difficult to get. soon enough, I hope. Let's take a look at where do we want to go? The reactor wreckage? Yes. To investigate the thrusters. Let's take a look at what's going on over here. And let's speed time up a little bit to get all our work up over here done as quickly as possible. We are now picking up some ice. Things are looking pretty good. We've got a fair bit of it mined out, which is promising. And there are these cryonic pods that need picking up as well. And I just wonder if I shouldn't prioritize these guys at level 3 just to make sure we're picking up as many as we can before we leave this little isolated zone over here. Now, the industrial zone wreckage has what going on? Right. The opportunity to look for the source of the yellow particles. Let's go for it. This will take 4 cycles to do, and hopefully it's not, I don't know, yellow asbestos equivalents or something. I don't know. I don't like the idea of floating particles. That just sounds dangerous to me, and I'm already concerned about how many losses we've taken and how things have been playing out for the last little while. Again, I say that while thinking, but we're actually okay, though. We are actually okay, though, aren't we? There we go. Electronics have all been delivered. Looks like alloys, or sorry, not alloys, but polymers are almost done being delivered as well. Hull integrity will drop momentarily when construction is happening, but that's not the end of the world. We'll recover quickly enough. And separately, we have finished researching our stellar cuisine, and we can now focus on Space Chef. Food over here, as you can see, is perfectly fine. We're perfectly fine. Current average production covers 269.5% of meal requirements. I'm not nervous about food. Not even remotely. I keep thinking I should be, but then I see stats like that, and I realize just how fine we are. Because again, that means we have enough food for twice as many people, more than twice as many people as are currently on the station, which means that the 2,000 cryonic pods we're expecting should be covered. So that's great. That's awesome. That's excellent to see. Meanwhile, are we? Oh, you know what? I thought this thing was still under construction, but it's not. That's just what the EVA airlock looks like in the cutaway. All right, let's go ahead and turn you off. We don't actually need this guy active, right? Hull integrity is at -84, but that's because we're actually building the solar panel right now, and the timing of that was absolutely impeccable. But hey, this gives us a preview of what would happen if the batteries over here ran out of power mid-transit. On which note, let's go ahead and demolish this road over here and build the remaining battery, if I can find it, over here. Cool. And we might expand our batteries up this way or down this way. We'll see what makes the most sense. We might do it if necessary, though don't forget we can always turn off our probe launcher and our colonization training center as well, right? In fact, if we do that right now really quickly, this ends up at 4.9, this ends up at 5.2, and it actually tells us we have enough batteries for 5 cycles. So I feel as though what we can do is temporarily switch off things in all of our sectors to accomplish that. As soon as we have the 4th sector unlocked, obviously, because this has to be across 4 sectors, but rather than building up a bunch of batteries that we don't actually care to keep, we might just be able to switch off a bunch of things temporarily and accomplish that task. Might not do it that way, but just saying that there is an option. I might approach it through the tech angle instead by improving the batteries we have rather than building more than we'll ever need in such limited space. Now, we can head back on out to the system map and take a look at what's going on at both of these zones, I suppose. Let's start with the industrial zone wreckage because I'm very nervous about these floating yellow particles. The team followed the trail of yellow particles through the vacuum to another section of Etamananki wreckage. It appears to have been at least partially spared from the destruction we have seen elsewhere. The particles come from the crushed and damaged flowers of yellow squash. A bed of these frozen plants surrounds a large bronze sculpture, a depiction of Earth, crowned with laurels. Many messages have been left near the sculpture, railing against the perceived enemies of humanity, Dolos and the Ashtengites. A plaque at its base reads, "Against the cynicism that kills hope, against the madness which precipitates hell, to perpetuate the genius of humanity and the memory of our life on Earth." There's a compartment beneath the plaque in which a sealed time capsule was found. It seems possible it could be opened. Oh boy. What's the worst that could happen? Open the time capsule. Surely there's some... this could go either way. This could either hurt people's morale as they look fondly upon things they'll never see again, or this could improve people's morale because nostalgia is a very potent thing, and maybe it'll make them feel all warm and fuzzy. Or Maybe it's full of dangerous materials for exactly this scenario. I don't know. Let's open the time capsule and find out as we go ahead and investigate this reactor wreckage as well. The Etamanaki seemed capable of achieving two different types of propulsion. The intrasystem mode of propulsion has many similarities to Dolus's EKP. Cross-referencing mission data reveals a number of matches to the encounter near Saturn during the Tiqqun's initial test phase. Ah, fascinating. Fascinating. That's from a long time ago now. Anyway, their intersystem propulsion covers many of the basic operations of the Vol engine. Our team has noted the remains of numerous accreditation areas. Access to and knowledge of the propulsion modes seem to have been strictly regulated. The two reactors were damaged at the same time as the larger superstructure, and our analysis has revealed traces of gluon particles. I'm not familiar with gluon particles. I feel like I should be. By the way, end data listening protocol, collect the science that there is to collect, and then we'll investigate the engine room. And once we're done, I worry it's going to trigger the storm and push it towards us. I'm not sure. Truth be told, I'm just not sure what exactly causes it to move. Some of you suggested time in the comments. Many of you confirmed my own suspicions that every time you complete an event or an investigation, it moves. But having both sets of answers in the comments means I remain uncertain, which is kind of a cool way to remain. It's nice not knowing sometimes. Adds a bit of tension, I suppose. Either way, the mess hall has been fully upgraded, which means we now have enough food for 355% of our population. Now, granted, that is with our meal policy being what it is, but for the time being, let's keep it like that. And if stability worsens, then we can go ahead and actually change our food policies, our meal policies, and, cross that bridge when we get there, so to speak. Separately, though, I wonder if, yes, we shouldn't focus on the Piranesi upgrade over here. Hacking threat analysis provides warnings of digital attacks on Tiqqun systems. Let's go ahead and research that. If anything happens in this system, I want to be prepared for it, and I do believe that should act as a countermeasure against the Piranesi. I don't know if there is just the one or if we'll find more as we move further and further along, but for the time being, it'll provide us with some help. And with a checkbox over here, potentially, if it's the only one we need to chase. Now, ice collection is continuing. Cryonic pods need to be brought in as well. Who here doesn't have an assignment? The Omnitron. I forgot we were building another mining ship. Of course we were. Let's go ahead and chase after iron with you, I suppose, though we have plenty of it. There's not much else we want to go chasing after. We're already chasing after ice with a cataphract. You know what? Let's prioritize ice and make iron secondary. I think that makes more sense because if we run out of ice, we stand to potentially run out of water, which seems like a distant threat, but I'd like to keep it as far away as possible. I'd like to stop it from happening, actually, so let's get ice flowing, and let's go ahead and take a look at, what was that notification for? The action trapped in time and steel. I do believe that is the industrial zone wreckage site, so let's go ahead and take a peek. Ooh, hello, what is this now? Inside the capsule were toys and other everyday items. Several objects were of unknown purpose. There was a packet of newspaper clippings that revealed some of what happened after the Tiqqun first entered self-similar space. There was a total collapse of Earth's ecosystem, accelerated by the moon's destruction. In response, the United Nations installed a totalitarian government of planetary surveillance to protect the population from eco-terrorists and the continuous waves of pandemics. They prioritized corporate practices that supported the environment and its preservation. Individual responsibility seems to have become paramount. Numerous legal ramifications were implemented to counter any further acceleration of ecosystem destruction. In this time of crisis, and guided by the government, society seems to have turned on politicians, extremists, immigrants, and conspiracy theorists. One after the other, they portrayed them as possible scapegoats, holding them responsible for 250 years of industrialization, market disruption, superficial societal practice, moral decay, and hyper-consumerism. The Etamanaki was to be the Great Ark, the global project that would save humanity. Only those deemed well-behaved in the eyes of the government would be allowed on board. The Ashtongites, fanatics of mysticism and proponents of genetic manipulation, were left behind on Earth with the deviants and dissidents. My goodness. Wow. I'm at a loss for words. There are no good guys. There are no good guys. I've spent so long wondering, are we the bad guys? Are we the bad guys? Not realizing that the answer is yes and. Yes, and everybody else was the bad guys too. Like, dang, I understand that we might have accelerated the rate at which all this ended up happening, but the fact that this is where everyone's head was at, and the fact that all it took was a little thing like the moon blowing up for everybody to suddenly turn evil and hate each other and install a totalitarian government. I mean, my goodness, nothing about these 4 paragraphs is hopeful or positive or feel good vibes. My goodness, my God, this is a dark future, and I guess in some ways an entirely believable one as a result. But nonetheless, we are still the bastion of hope. The Tiqqun will preserve humanity as we remember it. The hopeful humanity that left the Earth not realizing the consequences of its desires to protect itself. Right? Let's not forget the goal of our mission was to find a new home for all the good people that have now, yes, perished. But how could we have known? How could we have known? It was not our intent. We are still good deep down inside, despite what evidence points to. 45 science ready for extraction, and self-cleaning lubricants upgrade unlocked for the waste treatment center. I'm curious as to what that does for us, so let's end the data listening protocol over here. Let's not leave the wreckage just quite yet, and let's go ahead and take a look at our tech lab to see what that new potential upgrade actually does for us. Let's see down over here. The waste treatment is here. These self-cleaning lubricants, power cost reduced by 5. Okay, not all that helpful. I mean, helpful in some ways, but not urgently so. So we're going to stay on top of the hacking threat analysis here. We have science flowing. I do believe both of our sites over here are currently providing science. Oh, actually, the reactor wreckage over here needs some work as well. What do we have? Oh, right, the option to inspect the engine room. Let's go for it. Let's see what that brings us. And I'm really hoping that completing these events won't move things towards us. When I say things, I mean the storm, obviously. But the reality is it probably will, in which case I would like to complete both of these before pulling the trigger on them. And when I do pull the trigger on them, I want to make sure that the reactor wreckage is the first event we complete in case the storm moves in but stays just short of the industrial zone wreckage and the collapsed food production district, in which case we can kind of plan around that. I'm not sure if that's how it's going to play out, but again, just hoping for the best, as there is quite a bit of science to pick up here at P42 as well. My goodness, that is a huge load of science. I don't want to leave that behind. That's a lot of advantages that we're actually abandoning if we just if we don't scoop it all up. All right, lots to think about. Lots to think about as we finished recovering all of the science at the industrial zone wreckage, and now we can go ahead and opt to leave it. No, right, that's not what we're doing. We're waiting for our task here to be completed as we continue to mine out some ice and bring back some cryonic pods and stuff as well, I believe. Santa's sleigh, what are you up to? Have we brought any cryonic pods back? I don't think so. And if we take a look at Sector 1, we are currently actually actively waking people up too. Okay, fair enough. I just wanted to check, as a waste treatment center has had an accident and 15 crew members were injured. You know, the sooner I get this health center done and the sooner we have our train stations up and running, the sooner I'll feel a bit more comfortable about the seemingly increased rate of accidents. Fortunately, working conditions are still optimal and people are still happy across the board, but it's only a matter of time before things go completely sideways, I fear, and I just want to make sure we're prepared for that, as hull integrity is in a pretty rough state. So why don't we go ahead and turn this EVA airlock on and just get the hull repaired so that we're not in a tight spot should something go sideways, should there be a sudden emergency, right? I just want to play it safe. A nice upgrade to our... Oh, damn, it's gone. Before I could even finish my thought, it's gone. But yeah, let's get this topped up, or nearly topped up, and let's concern ourselves as well with some of these other options. Like, I do wonder. No, I'm not going to experiment with it yet. I'm going to leave this build enough batteries as the last step. Of course, we already need a fourth sector to do that anyway, but I'm going to leave that as the last step, as I believe there are some other things that we should try and take care of a bit more urgently, as our science ship has completed its task over here at the reactor wreckage. Are we ready to pull the trigger on this, or are we in a rather dangerous spot? Should we, perhaps, tell all of our fleets to stand down? Will they return to the Tiqqun and seek refuge, allowing us to maybe transport them or keep them here in the storm, whatever option makes the most sense? I wouldn't mind Santa's sleigh bringing back one last shipment of ice, but to that end, let's go ahead and stop all mining operations and see if these guys come back home. Let's go ahead and get all this set up. There you go. These guys should all be coming back home, and Santa's sleigh has picked up 30 ice in that brief amount of time and is making its way back, as well as Quicksilver over here is chasing after some carbon, it looks like. Let's go ahead and get Quicksilver standing down. Let's get you all standing down from, well, all your duties, I suppose. We're pretty much done clearing this space out. Wow. A little nerve-wracking. There's still some ice to be picked up, and of course those cryonic pods as well. Santa's sleigh is on its way back now, though, with that ice. So why don't we go ahead and turn this off and turn this off as well. It should still, I don't think it's just going to dump its goods, right? It's going to still come through, and then we'll call our work here at the reactor wreckage done. Try and power through the storm. Again, I'm making some assumptions over here, so pardon me for doing that, but better safe than sorry is the vibe right now. Better safe than sorry. Last session definitely shook me. Seeing the storm just kind of that was terrifying. When it just moved all the way up to here, that was terrifying. So I'm a little concerned. And I want to make sure that we don't lose any more ships. We've already lost enough. Let's go ahead and turn this EVA airlock off. We've got more than enough batteries to make the journey in Sector 3, so we should be fine on that front. These batteries are more than enough, and if need be, we can consider, again, switching things on and off. Like, again, the electronics factory, we can turn this thing off. We don't have enough silicon to do anything, so why is it still on? I should have turned that off a long time ago. But it's fine. It's not the end of the world. It's A-okay, but it is stuff that I should keep in mind moving forward. And in fact, I could also shut down quite a few of our food production buildings too, truth be told. We're fine. We're fine for food, right? We're perfectly fine. Nonetheless, I do believe all of our ships have probably returned by now, and I think it's time to see what happens when we leave the reactor wreckage over here. So let's take a look at the event. The Atmananki's engines were not supported by a PA or even basic AI. Instead, crew members were constantly monitoring, adjusting, and repairing the engines and thrusters. Their living conditions were extremely precarious, and it would seem many of them were either prisoners or rejects from the population on board the Atmananki. Traces of writing were found within some dormitory cells referring to genetic Natus and the Ashton Gites. There are records of several serious breakdowns before the final explosion. Crew members would work waist-deep in coolant, some dying while performing their tasks within the toxic substance. Those who refused were executed by their supervisors. Man, see what I mean? There were no good guys. There were no good guys. Everybody was evil. Everybody, oh my goodness, this is such an indictment on human nature. Just that when push comes to shove, everybody is willing to be the one doing the shoving. Oh my god. Man, I'm going to go through an existential crisis because of this game. I love it. I absolutely love it. Honestly, probably one of my favorite games to have released last year. It's just beyond the gameplay itself, beyond the mechanics, beyond the systems, beyond the ideas as far as the video game is concerned, just some of the conversations it's willing to have. Just my goodness, my goodness. I mean, I don't know. It might, I don't know, this kind of stuff in video games really does moves me, and I'd be curious to hear your opinions as well. Like, I don't know, do you guys, when you come across a game like this that tries to have these conversations, where does your mind go? Where does your head go? How do you feel about this kind of stuff? Because it definitely makes me, I don't know, wonder, think. I don't know what the right word is, but it's definitely something. It's definitely something. Anyway, folks, let's keep our eyes on the prize. Watch, the end of this game is, yeah, the administrator actually decided that the mission wasn't worth doing because humanity sucks. Game over. Which, God, almost wouldn't be surprised. But no, let's keep our eyes on the prize. Let's be hopeful about the people that we're carrying on this mission to preserve humanity as we remember it, right? I want to move towards battery tier 2 and then battery tier 3, but in order to do so, we will need solid state batteries and lithium sulfur batteries, and of course these upgrades as well, it looks like. So let's get solid state batteries first. Battery power capacity is increased by 10%. That'll be nice and helpful. And then move towards battery tier 2, perhaps? I'm tempted by the algae farm, but food doesn't matter right now. We're fine for food. It'll become important down the line, I'm sure, but for the time being, we are Okay, so with that in mind, yes, let's go ahead and upgrade to solid-state batteries because space is limited and we have a target to hit as far as power production. So let's go ahead and do that and hope that I'm not wasting power. Meanwhile, as our science collection has been completed at the reactor wreckage, let's go ahead and call it a day here and see exactly what happens when we leave the ruined propulsion systems. Dear God, please keep the storm at bay. Away we go. And it looks like the storm is in fact moving, but not as I'd expected it. Okay, all right. So it sort of pivoted. Oh, hello. Well, this is interesting. Not how I expected this to play out at all. All right. Oh boy, I feel a lot better now. So what we're gonna do is we're going to send the Galileo up to P42. To collect all that science. No, that's not true. We're going to send the Galileo to the collapsed food production district to do everything that needs doing over here. As that's happening, we're going to get Santa's sleigh collecting cryonic pods and at a lower priority collecting ice. I would like to have the Quicksilver collecting ice as well as the top priority, and I would like to have Pandora collecting alloys along with the Zoti. I don't know how to pronounce that. That'll hopefully keep resources flowing for the time being. Or you know what, why don't we, just trying to figure out how I want to arrange things back at the station as well. I think this is okay, and I guess the Aldana and Pelican will just kind of sit pretty. I could get them collecting cryonic pods as well, and then we could ship them over from Sector 3 over to Sector 1. I guess that's an option too. Not the end of the world, better than sitting idle, I suppose. So this feels okay. Carbon is a little bit on the lower end, which makes me somewhat uncomfortable. So why don't we get Pandora making carbon a second priority? And that way alloys will be rushed, and as soon as that's done, we'll see carbon coming through, and we'll just have to keep an eye on the Zoti. Okay, I think that's okay. And as far as mining is concerned, let's get ice prioritized, silicon as a second priority, and iron will be like last priority for all three of these guys, right? I don't think we can actually reach any iron deposits. I'm not sure, but this is good. Let's send these ships back out. I was a little overly concerned, but you know what? Like I was saying, better safe than sorry. But now we can go ahead and pick up some more resources. Everything is still forbidden. That is dangerous. Yes, sounds good. And that tells me that once we're done at the collapsed food production district, we'll be able to maybe come back to P42, because if this storm continues to pivot as opposed to push, we should be able to pick up that science before we leave. But this seems to work out nicely. Telling all those ships to stop collecting resources brings them back to the Tiqqun. I don't know if that means they're actually in the Tiqqun or if they're around the Tiqqun, but I'm hoping that if I have them, back at or in, hopefully the Tiqqun will be able to move through the storm without them having to actually travel through it themselves, taking on God knows how much damage and falling apart, right? So this is good. This is good. We also know that we can actually get over to here. Yes, the storm is going to hurt us. It's still the same distance, still 5.4 cycles, but again, we're prepared for that, right? 5.8 cycles in Sector 3, and Sector 1 and Sector 2 are also going to look good as soon as some of our research is completed, and we're making some progress there already with the Tier 1 upgrades done. Solid state battery, excellent. Let's get you up to Tier 2. And then we, of course, again, have to spend time actually storing up that power, but that doesn't take all that long to do, right? So that's all well and good. Now, actually, the question is, will I have to replace the batteries? Will I have to replace the batteries? You know how the crew quarters, for example, when we got optimized quarters and the demotic quarters, we had to actually build them. So is a Tier 2 battery different? Does it take more space? Oh, crap. That's very possible. It's okay, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, but this is a good way to find out for sure, apart from looking it up, which I refuse to do. So this is one way to find out what's going on, and hey, either way, I think it would have been necessary. The helpful thing of exploring this right now is that we'll know if we should waste time building Tier 2 batteries, or if we just wait and build Tier 3s to cross, to check that box without that middle step, I suppose. They'll store 700 power each, as opposed to 100. So if they take, let's say, 4 times as much space, but they provide 7 times as much power storage, then, that's a net win, right? So, all right, fair enough. That sounds good. We'll see how it actually plays out. There's no use guessing at it, right? I'm hoping it's not too much of an undertaking, though, because there are other things that I think I would like to prioritize. Again, like I said, I think this is going to be our last priority as far as our objectives are concerned. And on the topic of pointing out our objectives, sorry, that's kind of why I want to focus on these cryonic pods while we can. We might as well bring as many of them back as possible so that we're making progress on this front over here, the arc of humanity, right? I would like to start waking them up pretty soon as well because, again, the option is there. I still can't believe our current state of affairs as far as food is concerned. Abundance and plenty are certainly not words I would have associated with this game when we first started playing it. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at our tier 2 batteries. Holy, they are big. Oh, okay. Okay. Very, oh my goodness, very unfortunate size, isn't it? Is it going to fit in this space here? It is. What about those tier 3 batteries? So this answers the question, right? There's no point in struggling to fit these tier 2 batteries and figuring out what works or what doesn't work. I think it just makes sense to go right for tier 3 and then working out the puzzles. So to that end, back to our batteries here. Let's go ahead and chase after the lithium sulfur battery and then go chasing after our tier 3 batteries. Now again, this is increasing capacity as well, right? With the lithium sulfur battery, we'll see an increase of 20% capacity, which might be enough. In fact, the 10% increase that we're already seeing from the previous tech, the solid state batteries or whatever, has sector 3 up to 6.3 cycles, sector 2 to 2.8, and sector 1 to 3.4. So it's already making a difference, and maybe that'll be enough. I have my doubts, but maybe. Nonetheless, where were we? Right, of course. We were out over here at the collapsed food production district. Let's see what's going on over here. A lot. Summary of intelligence on Etamananki wreckage. Our sensors have located a section of the Etamananki drifting in the vacuum of space. Our initial readings are registering a lot of organic debris. Transmission from Galileo's team. We are on site. This part of the Etamananki was responsible for the ship's food production. Production was divided into 2 zones, vegetal and animal. We've also identified a self-contained area generating a heat signature. The area is small, but it is not impossible that some survivors may be sheltering there. Well, that's interesting. Oh, God. Do we want to invasively breach the self-contained area, which will prioritize Dolos crew safety over any presumed survivors? They're most likely already dead. Or do we want to make a cautious approach towards the self-contained area, trying to establish containment and depressurization protocols to avoid risking the lives of possible survivors? So this is it, isn't it? This is it. I'm going to risk the lives of our scientists because I'm so moved by how terrible everybody is that I insist on not being terrible myself. Risking the lives of our own scientists for people who probably already hate us or are probably already dead. Make a cautious approach towards the self-contained area. If there are survivors, we should try and make sure they stay survivors. We'll bring them back to the Tiqqun and see what we can offer them and hopefully change their opinions on the Dolos Corporation. Or if not the corporation, on the circumstances that humanity finds itself in. My God, this episode has been a heavy one, man. This has been a heavy episode. I don't know what to tell you. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. But it's really exciting to see how much progress we've actually made this episode as well. Like, research has been moving so quickly, and I'm so glad for it because, all these terrifying circumstances feel just a little less terrifying seeing how well we've pulled through. Yeah, that's the full thought there, actually. And it occurs to me, we do have space to store ice in Sector 2, so I just wonder if... oh, right, that's why we have the Quicksilver pursuing ice. Okay, fair enough. Why don't we go ahead and shut this down? Just have Santa Sleigh chasing after cryonic pods, and the Eldana and Pelican as well. You guys are storing them just randomly over here, eh? I suppose I could flip this from electronics to cryonic pods, and then have resource management take cryonic pods from here to here, max the space out, and that'll at least ensure that the cryonic pods are going to the right place so they can all be woken up and integrated into our society and, well, rack up this number over here as needed. I mean, Sector 4 is not yet necessary, and I'm holding off for as long as we can, because again, when we do activate that additional sector, we're going to have to take care of all the infrastructure elements, and we're also going to see a hit to our hull integrity balance per cycle, right? So maybe it's best to wait until we're on the other side of the storm before we pull the trigger on that. This is something to think about. That's where my head's at right now, and if you have any thoughts or opinions, feel free to share them down below as we return to the collapsed food production district to see what's happened to our scientists. God damn it. God damn it, god damn it, god damn it, I deserve this. I knew it. Upon entering the area, the crew of the Galileo were confronted by a UN soldier exhibiting extreme signs of dementia. Yelling the words, "Die, Dolos scum," they opened fire on our team. The confrontation ended with the depressurization of the area due to projectile fire and the death of both the soldier and 2 of the Galileo team. Investigating what they could afterwards, the team has concluded this was a place of indoctrination for the surrounding production zone workers. Remains of a statue dedicated to the glory of the Etamananki commanders were found, as well as other art pieces aimed at condemning the enemies of humanity, Dolos and the Ashton Geits. 2 crew members killed, Ludwig Hauptmann and Johann Oppenheimer. I goddamn knew it. I knew it, but at least we can say our morality is intact. God damn, that hurts. Let's go ahead and investigate the vegetal zone here. Galeo's team will investigate the food production area dedicated to vegetables to better understand the workings of the Etamananki. Let's do it. 3 cycles it'll take. They should hopefully still be making progress, yes. So while they are limited to new expeditions, they can still complete their current expedition without having to return to the Tiqqun, which is nice to see, as back at the Tiqqun, we have completed research and we can go ahead and focus on Tier 3 batteries. Multiple connections increase charging speeds, as does sealed environment. Those aren't really necessary for us, at least not right now. So let's go ahead and research the Tier 3 batteries. It'll take some time, but I do think it's necessary for us to prepare for all these objectives, right? Maybe I could have prioritized something else, but I feel like this is okay for the time being. And once our science ships are done down over here again, they can go ahead and pick up science at P42. There is a lot to pick up over here. My goodness, these guys are getting a lot done. That's exciting to see. I'm glad to see it. I was expecting fairly small numbers, actually, based on how colonization studies went at the previous sector. But what makes me nervous about this is that are these guys going to be left behind when we have to traverse the storm? I think so, right? Because they have a lot of work to do, and even after they're done their work, we have to spend time picking them up, right? It takes cargo ships time to pick these guys up. Now, granted, we could just tell them all in Sector 3 to focus on that only, but that can only happen after they're actually done their tasks, right? Meanwhile, the cryonic pod count has gone higher and higher, which is great to see. We've actually almost finished picking everybody up, and they are, of course, being moved around. If we take a look at the interior really quickly before we tackle our system-wide situation, if we look at resource management, these cryonic pods are, continuously being shifted over. We have plenty of room. That's not true, actually. We don't have plenty of room, but we are waking them up quickly enough that I think we'll be able to keep up with circumstances, as we do have to consider homelessness on the rise right now. We have room for another housing unit over here. We'll perhaps pursue that shortly. And what's going on, actually, with our health center? Need 5 more electronics, eh? Ooh, are we out of iron? No, we're just topped up, I guess, as far as resources are concerned. Fair enough. Down over here, waste treatment center. Just not enough waste. Just not enough waste. And I do wonder if we shouldn't shut this polymer refinery down, because it's got no carbon. So might as well, save that power for emergency situations. And if we do take a look at our system map again, are there no sources? Oh, there are. There's some carbon over here. Sure. Why don't we go ahead and tell Omnitron over here to prioritize carbon then, just to bring some back. Ice is looking okay. This is all looking okay. Pandora, let's get you chasing after ice as well. You're prioritizing carbon. That's okay. Let's get Zoti prioritizing carbon and make ice secondary. Just in case there's not a lot of resources on the other side of the storm, I want to make sure we've collected as much as we can as well, of course, because there is still work that needs to be done over here. On which note, the collapsed food production district calls. Drilling through several layers of debris, the Galileo's team finally reached the vegetable production area. They were greeted by the floating corpses of UN soldiers and crew. A few district workers seemed to have reached emergency cryopods before depressurization. Hydroponic technology was used aboard the Etamananki to grow fruits and vegetables in large vertical aisles. Recovered yield reports detail how hierarchical rationing reserved the rarest of foods for higher-ranking crew members. Although the remaining food production facilities are unusable, a few intact storage containers were found by the team. Retrieved resources have been prepared for extraction. Man, the UN was the worst. These guys are terrible. Wow, such a, like, completely class-based society. This opportunity for new beginnings, but no, a completely class-based society. Like, worse than anything in recent past, as far as what these guys would have said. I mean, this is horrifying stuff. This is horrifying stuff. But we've unlocked what for the crop farm? Personalized instructions. I don't like the sound of that. I don't like the idea of using anything that we get from this preceding paragraph. But we'll take a look at what that offers us. There's some science to be picked up over here as well, alongside a lot of food and a lot of cryonic pods. Okay, sounds good. Let's go ahead and pick up that science first, and then we'll investigate the animal pens and see where that leads us as we continue to gather some resources across the board over here. Again, pretty soon we're going to have to pull the trigger on our departure because we're just not going to have enough stuff left up over here to sustain all of our needs. Silicon, how you looking up over here? 18 to collect. Like, that's not enough to do anything with. That's not enough to do anything with. As down over here, we can start investigating the animal pens. That science is very helpful, though, fortunately, so that's good to see. Back in the interior, we are 70% done with our next tech. Just got to figure out when we pull the trigger on the next one. And do I want to shut down these steel mills? I mean, I suppose I could, right? They're not able to produce anything because we're completely topped up. Let's shut these guys down. Or you know what? No, that's foolish, because I want to make sure alloys are being produced whenever possible. Whenever possible, even if it means wasting power. We have so much of a surplus that I need to not concern myself with that. We're perfectly fine. Ice is looking good, water's looking good, food is looking great, alloys are looking great, electronics a bit problematic. We have enough on the station to build a health center, but you know what, maybe it's time to pull the trigger on this. Where do we have too many electronics? Sector 1, these guys are storing 9, and I think the intent of that was to actually build this very same structure. So let's set that to 0, and let's get Sector 3 up to 9. You know what, actually, that's not right, that's not right. Let's get Sector 3 up to 4. Can I not? Oh, right, can't, because of this guy. Dang. Alright, polymers, let's get you storing electronics instead. That should be fine. And now we can go ahead and get Sector 3 storing... Where are we? We're looking for electronics. Let's get this up to 4 and keep Sector 1 at 4 as well, in case we have to rush build demotic quarters or something, right? That should do the trick. Hopefully. And then the health center will be up and running, but obviously that's not enough to actually provide those services across the board. We'll still need to build up our train stations, which take 50 alloys, free, like not free, but not a concern, and then 3 electronics apiece. So that's where the trouble lies, I suppose. But we'll be fine. Once we get across the storm, I think we'll be okay on the other side, or at least I hope. At least I have to tell myself that in order to make sure I don't lose all hope as we take a look at the collapsed food production district once more to find what. The production area has been gutted for several hundred meters. The huge amount of floating carcasses has made it difficult for the team to differentiate between what is animal and what is not. The team did find several working cryopods and have prepared these for extraction. Production seems mainly to have been galliform, but there are signs that rarer meats were produced. The Galileo's team wishes to specifically note that they found a cryopod containing a dog. The owner seems to have decided that the animal's life was more important than their own. The corpse hangs on to the pod. Boy. Naomi Protocol, provide a new home for the dog. Listen. How can I not? How can I not? Right? The Galileo crew will bring the dog aboard the Tiqqun. What dangers could it pose? Quite a few. It could be diseased. It might be completely confused, going through cryo-sleep. Who knows if it'll turn out to be rabid or some other type of condition as a result of its stasis, right? We already know that cryopods can lead to space madness, right? Traveling alone does it, but I believe, if memory serves me correctly, cryonic pods can make it a lot worse. But am I really going to leave this dog behind? Am I really going to leave this dog behind? I think you all know the answer to that. But to find out for sure, you're going to have to wait until next time, because folks, this is where we're calling it a session. It's been a pretty successful one, a very tense one. The storm has come closer, but I guess there was so much more to actually keep doing here that we managed to stay on this side of the storm. Next session we'll definitely be crossing through, but I'm proud to say it looks as though we've made all the preparations we needed to make in order to make the crossing successfully and safely without sacrificing the integrity of our station or the integrity of our moral compass either, which really has been thrown out the airlock this session, eh? My goodness. My absolute goodness. The enemies of humanity. All. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this session. If you did, you know what to do. Let me know by leaving a like and a comment down below. As always, it makes a very big difference in just letting me know what people are enjoying on the channel, what I should keep doing, what I should speed up, slow down, etc., etc. But apart from that, as always, folks, a massive thanks goes out to all of the channel members and patrons who've been supporting the channel on a monthly basis. Y'all keep us alive and running smoothly. And of course, a big old thanks goes out to each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, cheers.